To show you how to put your magazine covers together by using some selection tools to remove your subject from the green screen background and to put it into another background of your choice. So to start, you're going to need to start Photoshop. And you're going to need to open up the image that you'd like to use from the green screen. So File, Open. And then you're going to need to first start by adjusting the exposure so that it looks, really good lighting. So I'm going to pull in the darks a little bit here and the whites lighter. Just make sure the contrast looks good. Then I'm going to hit OK. The next thing I need to do is adjust the color to kind of remove some of this green yellowy tint that we've got going on here. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Color Balance, and I'm going to increase the blue, which kind of actually neutralizes that yellow. So if I add blue, it neutralizes the yellow because it's a complementary color. Same thing here. If I add a little magenta, it's going to neutralize some of the green. And I'm just looking at her skin tone, trying to make that essentially more accurate so that the green in the background pops out a little bit more. Maybe something like that. So then I'm going to hit OK. So now that we've sort of isolated the green screen from our subject, the next thing you want to do is go up to Select and then hit Color Range. And if I choose this little plus on the eyedropper here, I can click on the green, and my goal is to make this white background totally white while making the subjects black. So I'm going to kind of, so this is looking pretty good right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see that most of the background, the green, has been selected. There's a couple things that got messed up basically because there's green in this globe. So I'm going to switch to another selection tool, the lasso tool. And up here I can tell it to, if I hover over this, I can subtract from the selection or I can add to it. So given that we are trying to select the background, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to zoom in, Command plus. I'm going to use the space bar to go up here and check out this globe a little bit closer. And I'm going to basically just click and circle around, and then I have to come back to where I started, and I'm going to subtract the middle of this globe from the selection. So you can see it's just kind of cleaning that up. We'll call for all intents and purposes and for time that is good. So now if I zoom back out, you can see that the green background has all been selected. Now what I wanted to do was select the subject, so I'm going to inverse that. If I go up to Select and I click on Inverse, you'll see now just my two subjects are selected. Next, I'd like to click on this Select and Mask option so that I can see my edge, and if I zoom in, you can see. What I'm going to do is just smooth the edge, probably about halfway, and then hit OK. And all that's doing is kind of smoothing the edge of the selection so that it doesn't look jagged. Okay, so now that I've got my selection made, the first thing I'm going to need to do at this point is save it, just in case something goes wrong. So I'm going to go up to Select, and then I'm going to go down to Save Selection. And I usually just type in a number, it doesn't have to be anything special, and hit OK. Now I want to see my layers palette, so I'm going to go to Window, Layers, and you can see right here this is our background layer. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to go up to Layer, New, Layer via Copy, and that's going to put our subject on its own layer so that I can then drag that layer into a background. So next up, I'm going to open up that background. File, open, and you should have already chosen one so you know what you're trying to open. If you got something off the internet, remember it needs to be high resolution, meaning at least 1,000 by 1,000 pixels. Otherwise, you can use one of your own photos. So now I'm going to actually start by cropping this image so that it is vertical. And we're going to do 8.5 by 11 by 300. Now that may not be necessary for you if you chose one that was already like that. Actually kind of like this right where it was. So I'm going to go hit return to initiate that crop. So now we've got the background image. If I pull this off so that I can see my other photo, and I use my move tool, which is this top tool, I also want to see my layers. So again, I'm going to go to Window, Layers. I can drag this layer that we created onto my background image. Now you'll see it's too big. So now I'm going to pull this back into Photoshop and hook it on the top menu bar. But to change the size, I'm going to go ahead and hit Command T, and I'm going to hold Shift and drag from the corner to adjust the size. And then once I've got it where I want, I'm going to hit return. So now we've got our selected image into the background image. At this point, you would be ready to start adding your fonts. So to add font, remember we downloaded fonts in Photoshop, but I'll just show you that one more time. If we went to www.dafont.com and you choose a font, we'll go with this one. Then you just hit download, and it's going to zip the file on the bottom part of the screen. If I double click on that, then I can open up the folder and click on the font itself, double click on that, and install it. And then if I again choose the text tool from the tool palette and click and drag, it doesn't matter where, you can move this around, I can go find that font. And I can change the size up here. You can type in sizes. And then I can change the color as well. And then I can type. And then you may need to readjust again. And then hit the check mark to initiate it. Move tool will move it. You can put this up here. And so on and so forth. You can again drag another text box, add your magazine article titles. They can be in a different font. You can also play with maybe you actually put one letter, like if you wanted to get a little more artistic, one letter on its own, and it could be much bigger, or it could also be in a different font. And then you can move this up and kind of tuck this in. Same rules apply. You can resize, Command T, hold Shift. I could drag this in, just make it a little bit smaller right there. Whatever you want to do with your fonts. Just remember you're trying to be artistic with them and use them to sell the style of your magazine. There's the last thing I'd like to show you is on all of the different layers, you can do what's called layer styles. So if I click on this, I could add, say, a drop shadow to either my font. As you can see, it showed up here. I could do that to my, I guess I'll have to initiate that. You could do that to your selection as well. Again, these are the layer styles. All of these are options, and they all will have a different effect. So you can play with that. It'll help to separate out one part of your magazine from the other and get it to pop and make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. So as you are working on it, you're going to need to save it, and also at the end, before we make it a JPEG, you're going to save it as a PSD. So again, File, Save As. I'm going to leave it as this PSD. I would save it to my project folder, but in this case, I'm just going to save it to the desktop. Make sure it says Photoshop here and hit save. Lastly, once you're totally done with it, and remember, you need a barcode, you need a volume and issue date, you need 4 to 5 magazine article titles, page numbers. Once you get all of that on there, then you can go up to Layer and Flatten Image to merge all of your layers together, and then File, Save As. And you don't have to change the title or the destination, but you do need to change it to a JPEG. And then again, each group can just share that one final and turn that in. So that's it. There's some variations with how that can be put together if you're struggling, so just speak up if you need some extra assistance.